There's an old house on the edge of a small American town. Everyone knows it, but no one dares to go inside. Not because it's abandoned, but because something lives there. Henry, a college student, had no choice. After his parents' accident, the only place he could afford was his grandmother's house, an ancient wooden building with peeling paint and a heavy smell of rot. But the strangest thing about the house wasn't the silence. It was the tree. Right in the middle of the living room, a black, twisted tree grew straight out of the floorboards. Its roots cracked through the wood, crawling along the walls like veins. At first, Henry thought it was dead. Just a strange, rotting decoration his grandmother had left behind. But on his first night, he heard it move. The branches scraped the ceiling above his bed, and when he came downstairs in the morning, the tree looked taller. Henry tried to ignore it. He studied in the library late, avoided the living room, and kept the lights on at night. But one evening, as rain pounded against the windows, Henry heard a sound, dripping. Thick, red drops splattered onto the rug. He froze. His eyes followed the trail, up to the tree. Its branches were wet, not with rainwater, but with blood. And tangled in the roots, just below the bark, was a hand. A pale, human hand, twitching. Henry's stomach turned. He grabbed a knife, trying to cut the roots, but the bark pulsed, like flesh. Faces began to appear in the trunk, eyes pressed against the surface, mouths stretching in silent screams. He ran, slamming the bedroom door shut. But when he looked in the mirror, the tree was there, standing behind him. Its reflection grinned, though the real tree stood perfectly still downstairs. Henry barely slept that night. When he did, he dreamed of the tree. In the dream, its roots wrapped around his chest, pulling him into the trunk. He could feel his ribs crack, his skin splitting, his blood soaking the wood. Faces whispered from inside, "Join us, forever." He woke screaming, drenched in sweat. But when he looked at his hands, they were covered in bark splinters. The dream wasn't just a dream. Terrified, Henry called his friend Harry to stay over. Together, they sat in the living room, watching the tree. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Until midnight. The branches began to twitch. Slowly at first, then violently, smacking against the walls. Harry stood up. "What the hell is this?" But before he could move, a branch lashed out, piercing straight through his chest. Henry screamed as Harry's body was dragged into the bark, his face pressing against the trunk, his mouth opening in a silent cry before it disappeared. Henry ran for the door, but every root in the house came alive, bursting from the floorboards. They coiled around his ankles, slamming him to the ground. He clawed at the wood, but the roots pulled him back toward the tree. Blood dripped from its branches like rain. Dozens of faces stared at him from inside the bark, men, women, even children. All trapped. All alive. "Why me?" Henry screamed. And then a voice answered. Not from outside, but from inside his own head. "Because you live here now. And everything in this house belongs to us." The tree's bark split open, revealing a hollow cavity inside. Dark, wet, and filled with bones. Henry's body was dragged inside. His screams echoed through the house as the bark sealed shut. The next morning, the house was quiet. The tree stood still, motionless. Blood dripped onto the rug, forming a pool. And on the bark, a new face had appeared. Henry's. His mouth wide open, his eyes frozen in terror. That night, through the windows, neighbors swore they saw movement inside. Branches twitching. Roots crawling across the floor. The house waits for its next victim. Subscribe to my channel for more horror stories, if you dare.